Hello and welcome to this video on Macbeth. Here we're looking at Act 1, Scene 6, and we're thinking about Duncan's arrival at the Macbeth's castle. However, before we do that, I want to check your understanding of 3 quotations. So pause the video, write down an explanation of each of those quotes that are on the screen, and then start the video again when you're ready. So the first one from the witches, fair is foul and foul is fair. Fair means good, foul means bad. So what the witches are saying is that things that look good are often actually evil and corrupt underneath, and things that look evil and corrupt might actually be good in reality. So they're talking about facades, about appearance versus reality. Think of Macbeth, for example, who's going to pretend to be loyal and honourable, but actually he's going to betray King Duncan. Then the second quotation, Duncan kind of recognises this idea that facades exist. And he said that there's no art, there's no way to find the mind's construction. There's no way to tell what someone's thinking in their mind by looking at their face. So Duncan knows that people have facades, but thinks that you can't work them out. You can't work out what's really going on in someone's head. Now, we should think that Duncan here is being quite wise, and that actually this means that maybe he'll not trust people very easily, but actually he trusts people far too easily. So it's almost like a moment of intense irony where he realizes what his problem is, yet he doesn't do anything about it. The third quotation then is again about facades. So Lady Macbeth commanding Macbeth to look like the innocent flower. So to look innocent, to look gentle and warm and welcoming and loyal and patriotic and all of those positive words that we've talked about. But in reality, to be the serpent, so to be corrupt and malevolent, associated with the devil. So another quotation that is linked to this idea of having a facade. Okay, another bit of knowledge to check then. So 4 keywords. Pause the video, write down the definitions, and start the video again when you're ready. Right, the first one, dramatic irony, is where the audience know more than the character. For example, we know Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are planning to commit regicide to kill the king. Duncan doesn't know that, obviously. Credulous is trusting, so Duncan is credulous. He trusts people too easily. Facade is where you pretend to be something that you're not. So Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are putting on a facade of loyalty to King Duncan. And the divine right of kings is where the king gets their authority from God. Okay, we're ready to look at this scene then. So it starts with boys, servants of Macbeth attending, enter Duncan, Malcolm, Donalbain, Banquo, Lennox, Macduff, Ross, Angus, and attendants. Okay, so a lot of characters on the stage coming in with King Duncan. The boys are things like trumpets or music that announces the arrival of the king. Now, all of this fuss is to show that Duncan is the rightful king. It's to assert the divine right of kings and to communicate the idea of his royalty, his authority, his control over this country. However, it's almost also a moment of dramatic irony because we know that very soon this is going to be taken away from Duncan. Now, Duncan is really kind of positive and kind and benevolent in this scene. And I think one of the functions of this scene is to really emphasize that he's an innocent victim of murder. He has done absolutely nothing to deserve what's coming to him a couple of scenes later. So he starts off by saying, this castle hath a pleasant seat, as in, this is a nice place. Look at Macbeth's castle, isn't it lovely? The air nimbly and sweetly recommends itself unto our gentle senses. Like, it's nice weather here, isn't this great? Banquo replies, and, oh my word, it's a bit over the top, but he says this guest of summer, this temple-haunting martlet, does approve. Banquo's talking about a bird here called a martlet and saying, look, isn't it nice that all of these birds are nesting in this castle walls? In a previous scene, we talked about the raven being a harbinger of death, being an ill omen. The martlet is a bird that's associated with positivity. They nest in places that are kind of welcoming and positive, so it's a good omen instead of an ill omen. And Banquo continues for quite a lot of time talking about how nice it is that this particular positive omen is nesting in Macbeth's castle. The irony is real. Then Lady Macbeth enters, and Duncan says, "Cece, our honoured hostess, the love that follows us sometime is our trouble, which still we thank as love. Herein I teach you how you shall bid God ild us for your pains and thank us for your trouble." So I've highlighted here in yellow our honoured hostess and the repetition of the word thank. Duncan is really flattering Lady Macbeth. He's really positive in his behaviour towards her, and he's celebrating her as his hostess, as someone who's welcoming him into the castle. And Lady Macbeth replies, also quite convoluted, all our service in every point twice done, then done double, were per and single business to contend against those honours deep and broad wherewith your majesty loads our house. For those of old and the late dignities heaped up to them, we rest your hermits. Basically, she says, we're very happy to have you here. And Duncan says, where's the Thane of Cawdor? As in, where's Macbeth? We coursed him at the heels and had a purpose to be his purveyor, but he rides well, and his great love, sharp as his spur, hath holpen to his home before us. So Duncan says, where's Macbeth? We thought he'd come ahead of us. Why isn't he here to welcome us? And then Duncan goes on to say that his great love was the spur to make Macbeth ride so fast to get back home. Again, this is dramatic irony. We know that Macbeth was riding so fast to get home so that he could plot with Lady Macbeth to kill King Duncan, but Duncan thinks that Macbeth rode so fast because he's so in love with Lady Macbeth and just couldn't wait to see her again. Lady Macbeth replies, your servants ever have theirs themselves, and what is theirs in compt to make that audit at your highness's pleasure, still to return your own. So here she says, welcome to the house, you can have anything you want, whatever you need to make yourself comfortable. And Duncan replies, give me your hand, conduct me to mine host. We love him highly and shall continue our graces towards him. By your leave, hostess. So Duncan reinforces the fact that he really loves Macbeth as a servant, as a subject, as someone who's serving him in the military. And Duncan promises to continue our graces towards him. Well, our grace is reward. He's already rewarded Macbeth by making him the Thane of Cawdor, and Duncan says that he's going to continue to reward Macbeth. All of the things that I've highlighted on the screen in yellow are there to show us just how much Duncan wants to honour and reward and celebrate Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. And the point of Shakespeare doing this is to emphasise just how innocent and unaware Duncan is about what's going to happen, and the fact that he's an innocent victim of this murder. He's being nothing but kind and grateful and benevolent and giving to the Macbeths, and they repay him by murdering him. Okay, what I've highlighted in yellow then here, honoured hostess, fair and noble hostess, and hostess. Now Duncan refers to Lady Macbeth as a hostess 3 times in this scene, and that can be no mistake. Remember, the number 3 in the play is associated with the witches and therefore with evil. So even though Duncan is complimenting Lady Macbeth here, it seems that Shakespeare is hinting at this idea of the facade, that really she's the serpent underneath the innocent flower. The fact that the word hostess is used and repeated here is reminding us of what Lady Macbeth's duty should be to the king. Hostess means someone who hosts a party, someone who runs a party. So imagine you've invited all your family over for Christmas and you're hosting the Christmas party. Well, you're going to make sure that they're warm and they're comfortable and they have everything to eat and to drink and that nothing goes wrong and that they have a lovely time. Well, that's Lady Macbeth's duty here to the king. And again, this is building the dramatic irony because she's going to betray that duty by organising for Duncan to be murdered. Macbeth used the word host in Act 1, Scene 7 as well, another moment of dramatic irony. So Shakespeare's really keen to emphasise all the reasons why Lady Macbeth and Macbeth shouldn't commit this murder. Lady Macbeth, as we've said, is pretending to be the innocent flower, whilst in reality being the serpent under it. And so when Duncan's saying all of these wonderful things to her, she replies, all our service in every point twice done and then done double. So she's promising that she will go above and beyond to make him comfortable in the castle that night. Interestingly, she says done double. Now, double is a word that we also associate with the witches. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so lots of information there. I want you to pause the video and fill in this table. On the one side, what do we learn about Duncan in the scene? On the other side, what do we learn about Lady Macbeth in the scene? And then start the video again when you're ready. Here we go. Here are my answers. So you can match them up with what you've written. You might have some things that are added on, that are additional to what I've written, and that is absolutely fine. Okay, thanks very much for listening, everyone. The next video will be on Act 1, Scene 7.